our Alberto deal came a little bit late. Well, a lot late. I don't think we had it all together until after the test session. My deal was put together with them, but we went to Tri-Cities with the plan, and I thought that it went really well. We ran third pretty much the whole final heat until the last lap. Seattle, it was frustrating to start off jumping the gun, and then we had the fuel control issue. Made it, squeaked into the final, and then I got a warning right off the bat, like 3:30 into the final, which kind of took me out from fighting for lanes. So a little bit disappointed how Seattle went, and then San Diego, we had a good weekend. We were just conservative with the salt with that starting procedure. Mike didn't want to take too many chances on salting down all the stuff, so it was pretty much get through the weekend with the home street boat, lock up the championship, and then we'll see where we were at in the final. And they didn't want us to get in there and troll like the Graham team did, and we just got beat. We started in lane one and didn't really have a gearbox for lane one, so I was struggling being in lane one with typical rollers in the turns, which was allowing Bert to stay with me. I couldn't break away from him, and then Jimmy was hanging out in the back and was trying to move out to two, and Jimmy kept coming up the inside. So we shut the door on him once, and then on the last lap, I couldn't do it again. I didn't want to get in any kind of trouble. He was running for a championship. It was more important for him to finish third than me. So once he got there, just let him come up the inside. Everything's slowed down. The shop's been pretty slow. The Hanson boys, been working either at the vintage shop or parts at home, just trying to abide by the lockdown stuff. Once this stuff starts getting a little bit the direction that we're going after this pandemic thing, they'll be back down to the shop and they're going to paint the Goodman boat, which is right now all white. So it's Tri-Cities, Seattle, and San Diego was always the plan in one boat or another, and that's kind of where we're at right now. I tried to make it down to the shop whenever they're there. Just stop in, say hi, see what's going on. It's been kind of quiet. Those boats are so well prepared already. There wasn't much to do to them. They have all the hardware off, getting ready to. That's all ready to put back on. They're just waiting for a paint scheme. The home street boat could be ready in a couple weeks. Not even. Motors have all been went through. Gearboxes have all been went through. All back together and ready to go. It's just waiting to paint the home street boat. I'll go down there and help where I can, when I can. Mike doesn't really reach out too much. They got it under control, so I just stop in there and say hi. I got a 1 liter project that I'm working on, completely rebuild a boat and get that ready for the 2020 season, whenever that starts. There's a lot of the advantage would be a lot of communication. You can usually have an A and B boat depending on the sponsor, where the B boat could go out and help you before the start, help you get a better lane. The disadvantage, I'd say, is a lot of teams that I've been with didn't have full-on parts to run two boats if something happened. When we were with Ted, we had all the best stuff, but once 2007, when we had those crashes, the parts started dwindling down, and it never recouped itself. And by about 2011, when I left, there just wasn't much stuff there to handle a two-boat team. They went back and I think ran 1 or 2 years with Jimmy as a one-boat team and rebuilt, and then came back out 16. Well, with me, it was in 16. They ran a couple of years because they had Jesse and Kelvin in it as a two-boat team and regrouped, but they had to rebuild because they had ran out of parts running two boats competitively like that. There's really no A and B team on there. The home street last year, we didn't whatever the home street spare fairings, wings, and stuff. That was what was on the boat. We only had like one set between two boats for spares, so that was tough. They built more this winter, more spare parts. There's going to be probably, this is what goes with your boat, this is what goes with Jimmy's boat type thing. But when there's a problem, like when we had the fuel control issue in Seattle and trying to figure out what it was, and there was two color shirts up on the boat the whole time figuring out to get it ready for the next heat. We only had like an hour to turn it around. So there's a lot of working together. This one's set up the most differently than it ever has, and it seems to be working smooth because Mike he's the crew chief for the home street, but he calls the shots for both boats. So one guy calling the shot for both boats is kind of dictating how we run, and he wants both boats to finish 1-2, so it works out perfect. Well, it's going to help with boat count for sure. That's a positive thing. It just all depends on the person running the show on that team and how it's a real tricky thing. You got two crews that usually want to win. There's got to be a good understanding going into the race season and what each team is and how they're going to handle it. I think it's a good thing because it's more boats and we need more boats right now. So if there's no new owners coming in, the owners that are here that are risking to run two boats, it's a huge expense. It's great for H1. It was an indescribable feeling, something that I never had felt racing before. I've won championships and final heats in every inboard class that I ran. That day was just insane. There was lots of debris on the race course, so we didn't even know if we were going to get through the day, let alone be able to run a final heat. And just one of those things that really, with one big race for our team, that's where a two-boat team really came into a factor. Alan was running in lane 1. I was going to leapfrog him and take lane 1, and then we decided right before we went to do it that lane 1 probably not the place to be in Madison, and we were good enough to run in lane 2 and thought that we could go around Mike. So having Mike in lane 1, me in 2, and pushing Alberto out to 3 worked out perfectly. And there's all these things you want to do when you win your first race. I thought I was going to go out and party all night long, but Madison, that doesn't happen because it's dry. So we went to a restaurant, and once we left there, we didn't even have a beer in our cooler, and then I was just beat. So it was a pretty low-key night. I remember waking up the next morning, and I was driving back up to Detroit with Mark Hooten, who's on the Madison team now. He's with us then, our team manager, and he had the radio on, and it was all that talked about until we got out of Madison. It was pretty cool listening to the radio the next day. In Unlimited, it's a toss-up between the boat that I drive now and T6. When I got in T6 in 2006 at Seattle, and 2007, even after we blew it over in Madison or in Evansville, it was not quite the same as it was, but that boat was awesome, and it just got worse after Doha when I blew it over. But when I came in 2006 in Seattle, there was nothing like it. It was the most amazing, the cleanness of it, the going into the truck, just everything was a wow moment. Driving the boat I'm currently driving, it handles very similar. It's a Cadillac, very easy. Those two boats are the easiest boats I've ever driven. They don't do anything weird. They just kind of steer one-handed, which is not how they typically are, or not how some of them are that I've driven in the past. But I'd say T6 probably a little bit more, just for the fact of that 2006 one went there, the wow moment of just looking at the stuff. It came straight from Budweiser, and all they did was basically slap Formula Boat stickers on it. It was impressive. In inboards, I don't know. We've had some really cool 5 liters. The one that Kip and I built in 2012 or 2000, yeah, 2012. That a guy named Gary Schaflant has in Detroit now that I drove in. I blew it over in Valleyfield 2018. That boat was there's nothing like it. The easiest boat I've ever driven. It always fast. We won a lot of races with it, but it's a hard toss up when inboards too because the Max Out was probably one of the worst handling boats I ever driven. But my God, the fastest thing. It was awesome. Set a lot of records and had a lot of accomplishments with Mac, and always was very honored to drive that boat. Madison. Uh, so that was 2008. We went to Evansville. We ended 2007 really good in San Diego. We went side by side for 3 laps with Steve on the outside. I led for 3 laps, and then the last two he ended up getting me, but he didn't beat me by much. I had a lot of momentum and confidence back after blowing over earlier in the year. Went off the winter, came out in Evansville, and first time back after blowing over there. So didn't have a really good Evansville. Went into Madison, had all that debris problem. Last thing on mine was probably having a chance to win, and all through the final heat when he wasn't catching us. Obviously, that's a very memorable moment in my racing career. So it's one of the top races that I've been a part of. I love going to San Diego. We won there in 2008 also. A little bit of controversy with the start, so it wasn't as much fun, but always seemed to run well in San Diego. One of my favorite places to go. Well, growing up, we went to Detroit, but other than that, didn't really follow Unlimiteds too much because they were West Coast and we were so busy racing uh, with my uncles up in Canada. So I was more of a GP fan growing up. GPs ran in Detroit too with the Unlimiteds all those years. So earliest memory is just going to Detroit with my uncle Mark, walking around. It was back then. It was so crazy. There was a lot more people. Winston Eagle had the race simulator in the semi. Budweiser had the race simulator, so always had to go check that out. My uncle would take me around. So Steve David, Mark Tate, and Nate Brown. Always go say hi to them. They were the greatest for a kid. Uh, I I really didn't start going down limited races till '98 when my uncle Mike started driving for Jones, and I crewed for him, and then Terry when he got into Leland, crewed there for a while. So I have to say for inboard, probably the Buckeye Kid 6 liter. It's a Jones step deck. Just the Jones step deck 80s. Boats look cool, and it was always just bad fast. Um, Randy Hawes ended up getting it in the Miss Toledo, and back then he's a Region 6 guy, and we were Region 6 guys, so always cheered for him and just loved that boat. And in 7 liter, there's a boat called the Hot Stuff, which was always one of all the Stoddicker 7 liters in the 80s were all pretty much looked the same, and for some reason I always liked that boat. It'd go down the straightaway and just carry right sponson, and how the guy never blew it over was insane. Unlimited favorite boat, probably just for paint scheme purposes, I would say the Winston Eagle. I like the bright orange or red. That was more red, or Elstrom's orange boat. We're My uncle's My Way was always blue and fluorescent orange, so I like the color, and those were probably two favorite paint jobs that I had in Unlimited. Unlimited would be Mark Tate, hometown boy from Detroit, and like I said, he always take time. But as a kid, you couldn't not be a fan of Steve David or Nate Brown too, because Steve David drop anything to talk to me. I got many pictures that's been posted over the years of me and Steve sitting up in the T plus cockpit when I was like 7 years old. And also Nate. Nate would be the guy that would take the hat off his head and ask for your hat and make you sign your hat. And we've talked about it many times. He still has this Deuces Wild GP hat I was wearing with my autograph when I was 9 years old, and I still have his tied hat with his autograph on it up in a box in my garage. So it's hard not to like those three. Mark was a little bit harder to get to, but with my family, it was a little easier for me. So him being for Detroit's obviously are my top. I always cheered for Mark Date.